Greetings, founding comrades, and welcome back to Bee's Knees, our little foundation town. I'm the tool inspector, so everyone whip them out and I'll judge whose is best. Yes, last time we learned how to make clothes, and today we're learning how to make tools. Tools are one of the most essential materials in the game, and quite possibly, out of the essential ones, they are the most complex to make. They're one of the most complex materials to make in the game period, so they can be quite daunting for a lot of people. But fear not, together we shall endeavor upon the tool industry chain and conquer it. Of course, at the start, you will actually be buying your tools. So your Northbury trade route is your main source of tools to supplement your starting supply. But that cost is huge, as even a simple lumber camp, which normally costs 10 gold and 2 tools, has its price essentially more than doubled if you count the price of 2 tools at 6 gold each, which is what Northbury offers them for. So starting to produce your own tools not only offsets this cost, they can even be an early source of significant income if you begin crafting and selling them instead. What do you think about the production of tools? Oh, is that so? Okay. One thing to note before we embark on our production journey is that one of the best and cheapest sources of tools is the Careful Planning Edict. This can be super overlooked, but it is really good. It refunds 50% of all tools used in construction, and can be useful deep into mid and late game to offset the amount of tools needed for massive constructions. Think about it, you have a big castle that needs 250 pieces of tools to make. 125 of those are going to be refunded, and actually as they build the individual parts of the castle, they're refunding those and putting them into more of the castle. It really speeds up production as well. So do not overlook this. You can find it over here in the prosperity path, in the common path. If you have 10 prosperity, you can unlock the extended village edict for 50 gold. And careful planning is one of the most valuable edicts to enact. Speaking of prosperity, this is also where we will unlock tooling. So if you go back to your progression in the common path, you can find tooling right here next to the extended village edict. This is what enables us to create tools. There we go. Unlocking it unlocks 4 buildings. So you'll need 50 gold to unlock the tooling itself, and then another 150 to buy all of the buildings. As always, also keep in mind stuff like warehouses and other sundry costs, so it's good to have at least a small stash of gold as you get into this. Let's talk about the production chain real quick. So, in order to produce tools, let's work backwards. You need a couple things. I'm going to pause the game so that don't build these. So you will need the blacksmith. The blacksmith makes tools out of coal and iron. In order to get iron, you're going to need to make it at an iron smelter. The iron smelter produces iron from coal and iron ore. In order to get coal, you make it at a charcoal hut. The charcoal hut is like a woodcutter, except instead of producing logs, it produces charcoal, but it will need a woodcutting zone in order to do that. And then in order to get iron, you need an iron mining camp. Now the iron mining camp will need these locations. This one over here, for example, is a good one. Or you can also just equip your iron mining camp, go flat and look for these icons around the map. And you can find all of the good iron spots. Now, if you're an experienced player, or even if you've just played around a little bit, you probably also know that there's another source of iron and coal. No, not buying them. You can, of course, buy a lot of these materials, but I would recommend against that. They're not sustainable to buy, and they cannot sustain a large city. What I'm talking about is these. Over here we have to go quite far from my city. these mounds of stones you can see over here, these like whitish stones. These big mounds are always greenish. And then there's these sort of stone-colored stone mounds. All of these can be inspected by your bailiff. Prospect a mineral deposit. So these mineral deposits can be prospected and they have different minerals in them. Sometimes it could just be stone, other times it could be iron, and other times again it could be coal. So those can also be great sources of those. In general, those can supply more workers and work a lot faster than these other alternatives, the iron mining camp and the charcoal hut. Also important to note is that these iron deposits by default have now been changed to be endless, but there is a game option which was intended to be the default. It was just considered to be too hard by players. There is a setting that can change these to not be infinite. I would say that that's quite fun to play with, but it can be quite annoying if you get unlucky with the roll of how much iron there is on the map. In early access, it did work so that there was a guaranteed at least one iron vein, I'm pretty sure, on every map. I don't know if they've changed that to be more or even no guaranteed iron veins. I think that would be a little bit rude. But in these giant fields, these are always infinite. But of course, they're tied to specific locations. For me over here, that's a lot of territories that I'd have to purchase in order to get over there. On the other side, I have them across a river or even across two rivers if I go through this island. So these small deposits, even if they are temporary, and again, remember, if you don't know whether yours is temporary or not, it probably isn't temporary. It's probably a permanent node because the default now is that these are permanent. They weren't permanent during the demo and some of the playtests, but as of right now, these are permanent by default. Again, there is an option where you can make them not permanent. Same goes for the stone ones. So these are the 4 buildings that we will be making today. In addition to these 4, we're probably also going to need a warehouse. So I like to dedicate an individual warehouse to each different production chain. If you want to know more about that, then check out my last video, the one about clothes, because in that one I went in detail about the different ways that this can be very beneficial for your industry. I'm kind of wondering if I want the corner of this to actually be in the field. Let's take a look. Yeah, I think that will look nice. Just sort of like that. Has a little bit of pathing here. And that's nice. So let's get our one thing that is dependent on the zone, and that is the iron mine. Let's get these 2 down first. So I like to usually plan out my whole thing before I press build. You might have a similar experience. If your gold is not super unlimited, you might want to just build your iron mine first and then let that function for a bit. But I would recommend saving up at least a small amount of gold before you build this stuff. So let's take a look. Another thing that I like to remind people about is the fact that these buildings can all be moved once you have placed them. Of course, it costs a little bit to move them and they do need to be reconstructed, but it's not the full value. And that's actually really handy. It also keeps the workers and everything. So even if you have other plans in the long run, you can just, for the short term, just place things where it makes the most sense. Also, you may notice, I wanted to show this in the last one, but I forgot. In the daytime, it's kind of hard to see some of these blue lines and stuff. Actually, if you switch to night or dusk, you can see these blue lines of where the walkable paths are, the walkable zones, much more easily. And that's just a little nice little tip. A pro tip, if you will. Now, down here it says this is walkable, but I wouldn't trust it. Although it is quite a nice squeeze over there. Maybe we will squeeze this here instead. That looks good. And then we'll squeeze the blacksmith up here. We can just get it as close to the fence as possible. We don't want to waste space. I know that there's not going to be any room around this thing, but there's always space for a decoration, a light. I love decorating with the lights. Alright, so on this side, I kind of want to leave this natural forest for hunting. That's a whole nother topic. If you want to know more about hunting, let me know. So we're going to place the charcoal hut over here, actually, and we're going to buy this terrain. So for a moment, I'm going to just buy this territory and this territory. It's nice to have a lot of wood. Now, if you don't have a lot of territory, what you could also do over here, I have different plans, so that's why I'm not doing it, but you could put your charcoal hut down and add a forester hut. That's going to be under resource production, forester camp or forester hut. And you just build it and you paint the zone. And a forester camp can sustain pretty much, I think, 2 woodcutting buildings. So 1 charcoal hut, 1 woodcutter, or 2 woodcutters or 2 charcoal huts very consistently, even more possibly. But I tend to go like 2 per 1 forester, and it works out nicely. So because I actually want to clear these zones of wood, I'm actually going to put that over here. So there's a little bit of space here, but I don't want to disturb the sheep with this burning. But it is kind of an attractive place to put it. We'll disturb the sheep a little bit. And because it's a quite large distance, I'm actually going to make 2 charcoal huts to start with, and then we can always delete one if we have too much coal. I did, however, in personal experience, find it that like quite often I need to, but maybe I'm just not as efficient with my wood. Remember to paint your wood cutting area. All of this wood must go. It's a doorbuster sale on wood. Alright, and now let's build our industry. So these are kind of the first ones you want to build. You want to build your charcoal huts and your iron mine. So if your gold is limited, those are the 2 that you want to build. If you have an iron mine node in one of those locations, then that is important as well. In fact, I will tell our person to prospect one of the minerals, so you can actually use this here to show you exactly which deposit it is. So we're just going to prospect that, and I'll show you what that looks like once it's done. It does take 20 days, but they'll take a while to construct this anyway. Plus we need to now get the money to build these. All right, our charcoal huts and our mine and our warehouse have been built. So I like to start with assigning the warehouse, and we're going to say we need coal and iron ore and iron and tools. All of these in one location. And because the coal is actually going to be gathered elsewhere, we're going to say stock maximum. These aren't super long distances, so this isn't super necessary. But if it was slightly longer away, I would maybe even make another warehouse here to gather this coal and then for the warehouse to take it over. Again, this distance isn't super big. We might just benefit from having 2 transporters, and that's it. So that's kind of one of the things that can help. All right, so next we want to assign our charcoal huts. Charcoal hut workers. And our miners. There we go. Now let's build these 2 buildings. So this one's a little bit down on the coast. There have been some problems. This might be fixed by the time this video comes out, but since at release we had a little bit of problems with things that are super close to the water, they might not successfully get built. For now, let's try to build it and see if they can get it. If it stays on waiting for a builder for too long, that's a sign that it cannot be pathed to. We shall see. Okay, Spiven is in fact bringing the stone. So this is fine. It's working. In the meantime, our iron miners are already going at it over here at the iron mine. And it used to work so that you can have actually multiple workers from the same, on the same node. So if this iron mine production isn't enough, we can always boost it. There, let's give them a nice little torch though. They can work by torchlight. All right, now we are going to wait for them to bring in the materials to build these two buildings. Another note, while you're deciding whether you want to build your charcoal burners or woodcutters next to the forest or away from the forest and they have to walk to it, there's a little point of consideration. When people walk to their workplace, they are making roads. So when people are walking to the lumber camp or to the charcoal hut, they're making roads. When they're walking from their workplace to where they're going to do their work, they are not making roads. So this is the same with the people who are making the pastures, the same for stone cutters, iron miners, everybody. When they're going, and the berry pickers too, when they're going from the charcoal hut to the woods, there will be no roads. So if you would like this to be unscathed by roads to give you a little bit more freedom later on, make the charcoal hut next to your town, next to where you have active roadage, so that you do not make big roads. If you don't care about the road or you want the road, put the charcoal hut next to your forest. And this goes the same for all of the other material gathering houses. So the berry picker, ooh, that's a lot of newcomers. The berry pickers and stone cutters, wood cutters, all of those. All right, they're still working at it. We have our iron smelter. We can actually already turn that on because that is the next step. And the iron smelter is working. They picked up the coal, they picked up the iron. And they're making their first iron bar. Oop, that just jumped. There we go, we have our first iron bar. Now, right now we have a lot of coal compared to the iron ore, but once the blacksmith works, remember they also use the iron and they use even more coal. So that's like a double coal usage. First, tools forged. That's not true, we haven't forged any yet. An industrious clang of metal echoes through the village. Tools are now crafted, not bought. Your villagers are eager to build, create, and thrive with these sturdy instruments. This is very nice. It's very nice to get your own tools. There you go. That's the easy way to set this up. Now, here's a couple considerations while this is going on. I always recommend this to everybody. When you are making your production, make each of these, even the ones that don't technically need it, like coal and iron ore, even if we had coal right here, and iron ore also is stored in the mining camp, give it a warehouse slot so that it can go up to 100 plus. So technically all of these you can have 150 iron ore with the coal because we have 2 coal burners. It could go to 200 because it's 50 and 50 and then 100 here. Make them all have a warehouse slot because that is much easier for you to keep an eye on and to control, because you can just look, first of all, it's what you need for trade, but secondly, you can go over here and look at how much you've got, and if there's something that's super sensitive, you can of course always favorite it and pin it. You can be like, how much iron do I have? You can just temporarily be like, I want to keep an eye on all of this and see how it goes. And so what I like to do is I like to aim for essentially, do I have enough tools? No. Why is that? Let's look at my iron bars. Are my iron bars at 0? That means I need more iron smelters. Are my iron bars at 150 or whatever their maximum is? That means that I'm making enough iron bars Now I need more blacksmiths. Is my coal at 0? Is that why my blacksmiths aren't turning that iron into that? So then I need more coal. Is my iron at 0? Maybe I need to add another iron miner. So it's a really good way to see where in your chain you have a problem. And when you have it up to 150, that's also an easy way for you to see if something is starting to drop below 100. You can notice that earlier before the whole chain collapses. You can be like, oh, I see that now suddenly my iron ore, which I used to always have capped, is dropping. Something's happened. I should look into that. I should add another iron mine. I should, change the production or whatever. So that's something that I always recommend. Have a warehouse, at least one of these for every single thing that you craft. And it's also very handy if, for example, we have a location where we're making a lot of iron, but then we want to make tools elsewhere or later on, because iron is used for many different things. If we look at the progression, this tooling is just the beginning. It's just the beginning of the Pandora's box. Each of the weapons needs iron bars. They need coal. Some of them need cloth. Others need tools and stuff. So all of these are like very advanced, and also they need to be within like a protection zone. So you might need to make them somewhere else. Common wares are made of planks and iron, and there's a lot of stuff that uses a lot of these materials. So you might need to have one place where it's your like huge iron production facility, and then you take that iron somewhere else to make the tools. And in that case, it can be really beneficial to have this like iron stop in the way. Maybe even have 2 different slots for iron in that case, because these warehouse workers are going to keep that iron stocked at 100, so that when the warehouse worker over here, let's pretend that it's over here, like really far away, I need to deliver the iron over here, then I will say stock maximum on the warehouse that's over here, and it's going to go over there and bring it over. And you can have 3 transporters, and you can reserve a lot of slots here for the iron, and they will keep that stocked, because otherwise your tool creator or whatever will get distracted, and they will go walking all the way back here to find the iron, and then they won't do any work because that's going to be their entire workday. Okay, so our bailiff completed their mission, and they found an iron deposit. So there's trees in the way, but I think if we just look into it like this, you can see iron deposit now has iron, has this red thing. You can also find marble, you can find coal, or just stone. And now you can build, I can't because this is not in my territory, but you could build 2 iron mines here. So you need to snap them. It's a little bit fiddly because it's not on your mouse. It's that white dot at the end of that plank needs to coincide with that empty dot over there. You can build 2 of them. You can assign a lot more workers. And you also need to put down a storage depot. You can just kind of clip it into the stone. It's fine. And again, this is not in my territory, so I can't build this. But you could build a huge iron mining facility over here and then have all of that iron delivered to your industry. That's kind of a good way to do it. Or in this case, it's kind of surrounded by a lot of wild forest. I might even want to have the charcoal huts here and already smelt it into iron bars before we deliver it to the rest of the city. So those are kind of 2 really good options. Both are good. So anyway, that is what the bailiff does. This is the prospect a mineral deposit thingy. And at the start, it can cost a lot of money. So it's probably worth using these resources at first. But it is a much slower trickle of iron this way. But we've made our first tools. As you can see, there's kind of a little bit of everything except iron. And we have 8 tools, which were not delivered here from anywhere else. So we have crafted our first tools. Wonderful. I would recommend with tools that you keep buying them unless you're already starting to sell them. Once you are starting to sell the tools, I would recommend a pretty high number. Somewhere like... Oh, maybe we did still buy them because we only have 20. Somewhere above 150 for tools, because you never know where you might need them to build stuff, or how many you'll need if you do a massive construction and you're like, oh, I only have 20 tools. Now I have to wait for, you know, an entire hour for my tools to stock up or whatever. So when you start initially selling them, I would say make that 150. For me right now, because I'm just creating them, I will just be buying 20. That just keeps me from running out. Now, if you would like, I would say it's kind of a good idea. It's not a bad idea to, even once you have, if you're not selling your tools and you're not confident in how many tools you can produce, even if you have like 150 tools, if you're not selling them, I would say keep buying them and do something like, if it falls under 50, please buy more tools. Like, have a little safety net. I think that that can be very, very helpful. It's something that I do with a lot of essential materials. So later on, when selling berries is kind of no longer a thing because taxes give us so much more money, I might actually flip this. So we start buying berries if they drop under 150. And it's usually not going to be enough to keep your city fully stocked up with food if you just lose all your berry production. But it's something that can help you stay afloat while you figure out what happened to your berry production. And it's the same with tools. So I've just added a second mining camp, and it does look like they can both access it at the same time, which is pretty good. I was kind of worried that they were just going to wander off and start mining somewhere else, but it seems like they're not doing that. That is one thing that, because you don't have to paint any zone or anything, if you're not looking carefully, and if something goes wrong, like maybe there's a pathing issue or whatever, your miners from here could be going all the way up there to mine. So sometimes you gotta, you know, keep an eye out and just be like, are you doing the thing that I need you to be doing? But it seems like they can both mine this at once. So that's pretty good. All right. I believe that's most of my tips and tricks for iron. If I remember anything else, I'll mention it later in our Let's Play. But I believe that for this video, that's kind of it. That's kind of everything. So, wonderful. We have produced our first iron. Congratulations if you've been following along. You did a good job. Your first iron. Alright, everybody. That is it. I hope that you found this tutorial useful. This was another special episode of our Let's Play series. So if you'd like to see more of our town, you can check in with the rest of the series playlist for some more relaxed gameplay videos. And if you'd like to see more tutorials, let me know what you'd like to know about in the comments. So we already have a tutorial out for making the cloth. That was pretty fun to make. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a quick tutorial video, shorter than my usual Let's Plays, and it ended up being just about the same length. So yes, I have a lot of other Let's Plays in this same series of the same city. So not every one of them is a tutorial. I just feel like that's a really fun thing to do. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more Let's Plays, tutorials, and first impressions of indie and city building and management games. That's kind of mostly my fare. I do some other stuff too sometimes, some special videos with more editing and shenanigans. So keep an eye out for all of that. Currently we have our Foundation Let's Play twice a week and some other ones also. You can also come say hi live on Twitch at the old twitch.tv/lelling. And when you come say hi over there, You can also support me by subscribing or using your Twitch Prime sub. Alright, everybody, that's it from me. Have a nice rest of your life. Stay solidary. Catch you next time. Goodbye.